I'll find a way. For the thrill is gone, I gotta get it on and find that strength. Cause the road I chose, yeah, it's always full. Those highway nights make me feel so safe. I chase the lightning, I got so. Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Innovative Strategies is a show designed to help people with their business and personal financial literacy, but not in the way you've known. This is not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from about a 30,000-foot view of things. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds and hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have any questions, you can email Bill at Hasse, that's Bill at BillHaase.com, or reach out to him right here, 216thenet at gmail.com. Put Innovative Strategies right in the subject line. Today, is your branding working for you? Good morning, Bill.
Morning, Kent. How you doing today?
I am good. How are you, sir?
I'm good. A little pumped up. Middle of the week. Looking forward to that snow tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
It's 83 on Saturday and snowing on Wednesday. That's
right. Frosted up last night.
Yeah, welcome to Chicago. We got looking forward to a good show today. I wanted to tell you something though.
Yeah.
Driving in this morning.
Yeah.
I got behind a bus.
A school bus.
A school bus.
Yeah.
I did not know they stop every 6 houses. I mean, I'm not going to do the old story walking uphill for 10 miles in 3 feet of snow every time I went to school. But the reality is when I walked to the bus stop, my home was no longer in sight.
Yeah, right.
It was way beyond that. And it's like every 6 houses.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what about exercise? And then everybody's there in their car. Right? And the kids are in the car.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is cold out this morning. So I can get that to some extent. But really?
Well, that's also because parents are like, oh, you're here. Just your coat is a hooded sweatshirt.
Right. Well, that's true. Because
tell my kids, put a coat on. It's cold out.
It's April. I'm not wearing a coat.
Right.
I'm wearing shorts and flip-flops and let's go.
That's it.
So that I was kind of just like, really? But that's, and I notice it in my neighborhood too. It's interesting how that has come about. But today we have a great show. We got a special guest here, Tom Briggs. Tom is in the branding world, and like this radio station is Christian based. He's done some fabulous work with some major companies: Nike, Sonos, Samsung, Keen. If you don't know Keen, look up Keen shoes. They're great. They're awesome. Best Buy, Newegg, Amazon. He's worked with a lot of major organizations here on branding, and I had the distinct privilege and pleasure of listening to him speak last week, and it really resonated with me, the value and importance of this topic and subject. Hence, I wanted to bring him on right away because I want to learn more as I build my business. I want to understand more of the value, the importance, and some of the methods that he brings into play. But so Tom, welcome to our show, Innovative Strategies, this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. It's a pleasure to be here and just sit down for the next hour and kick some ideas back and forth with you. I'm interested in picking your brain. I'm trying to become a better investor, and I know you have deep experience in the field. So I know there's lots we can talk about.
I
there.
hope you like high risk.
I do. I have a little bit of a time horizon. So they always say, the closer you get to needing it, retirement, whatever. So I guess I'm not young, I'm in the middle of the pack, but time is always your friend in investing, right? Isn't that the general rule?
It is. It may not be a good time right now, but as we've been seeing lately with the markets, kind of stuck on that news mode. They don't really have information, although we have all kinds of reports coming out now. So the financial reports are coming out, and so we'll see how well the companies are doing. But tell us more about your side of the business, the branding side, because a lot of people don't take this to heart. You know, they understand sales, right? Sales drives the money, brings it in, and marketing helps drive sales. But where does branding come into this play?
Yeah, brand is interesting. It's one of these words that I think is a little bit misunderstood, which is sad because when you really start to unpack what a brand is, it can be a really interesting way to holistically look at your product offering, position your sales, position your place in the marketplace, really. So branding is hand in glove with positioning. And the reason is that I define brand as just a consistent presentation of who you are, who your organization is, across every possible touch point that you could have, every possible interaction point with your customer, with the marketplace. And people hear brand, they think, oh, the logo, the colors,
Yeah.
maybe the words you use, the photos, but it's so much more than that. It is the whole total way that you're perceived in the marketplace. That's what I take as
Would you
brand. It's
call
a
it
very
reputation?
It is, a reputation is part of it, the way you're perceived, whether you come across as expensive or value or cheap. The words you use, it's everything. And that's where you can have a personal brand. We all have our personal brands, whether you like it or not, the way you are perceived, the way you come across. But even, Samsung, Intel, Best Buy, those big corporate brands. So there's a lot of similarities, whether you're, global Fortune 50 or an individual coach service provider looking to carve out a niche in your industry. Brand is brand, really.
Well, and interesting you bring up the global Fortune 50 and stuff. You work with organizations like that. These are big time boys playing big time games, and they understand and see the value of bringing someone on such as yourself with your expertise in helping them understand uh, longer term branding, not the short term stuff, not the quick hit, but it's because I believe your process looks more at the longer term aspect of branding.
The filter I always use in working with a brand is, are you willing to dedicate this and see it as a value line item on your P&L? So the Coca-Cola brand, that brand itself, that combination of lines and colors has value. I mean, it's an established value. I don't know off the top of my head what it is, but the amount of energy and effort put into defining what we think of when we think of Coca-Cola or Samsung or Disneyland or Tesla or Apple, take your pick. It's fundamentally that entity has value. That brand has value. And yeah, I believe we're so over communicated in this day and age. There's so much noise that fundamentally creating a brand is just that consistency is essential. If you're kind of scattershot and you're one thing one day, another thing the next day, you're not going to break through the noise. You really need to be clearly defined and consistently present yourself in order to have any hope of breaking through to the clients, the customers, the partners, the fellow travelers you're hoping to reach. And that's fundamentally where consistency is part and parcel with good branding.
So, and it's super important in my mind anyway, but so you're working with the big boys. Now they've already developed over years the branding and whatnot, yet they still focus on tweaking it and keeping it in the forefront and stuff. But at what time do, say, many of my listeners are solopreneurs or young startups?
Yeah.
Is this something they need to be thinking about from the get-go?
Absolutely. I mentor a lot of early stage startups, in the incubation phase, and whether pre-venture, angel, or, putting out the call for venture funding. And as soon as they can, I counsel them to start building their brand. And in so doing, I encourage them to tap into their values. What's going to be timeless? It's easy to establish a brand if you're a solo founder or in combination with a co-founder. And I always ask them, the biggest question is, what is true now that will be true as you scale? What will be true at 5 million, at 10 million, at 100 million?
Right.
Because that prevents you from having to rebrand every few years. And there's a strategic time and place to rebrand. But fundamentally, it's what are those unchanging elements? Zappos did a really great job of this. They were always they're a shoe delivery company, but fundamentally their tagline was that they delivered happiness. They were an online retailer, but their customer service was exceptional. And it was because they made it a core value, both internally, when you signed up as an employee, regardless of whether you were a line employee or an executive, you knew you were signing up for that vision. And they had that whole thing where they'd pay you half a year's salary. If you got 6 months in, they basically would pay you to leave. They'd say, hey, no hard feelings. If you don't resonate with what we're all about, you're not on board with this, feel free. We'll pay your exit. And you see that, as they scaled up, even, post acquisition by Amazon, they're maybe starting to show a few cracks just because everything that comes into Bezos's orbit, becomes Amazon-ified. But fundamentally, you see that consistency all the way up, and it was a really good thing. And it was a net, the strongest brands are a net positive for humanity. I always tell founders, no one gives a damn if you make a big 7-figure exit and go sail around the Mediterranean in your super yacht. But if you genuinely bring something to the world that puts a nice positive dent, that, pulls for some good things, and whatever that is, maybe it brings humanity closer together, or, allows people to achieve greater confidence, wholeness, whatever it is, you're going to become remarked about. You will become remarkable because people will start talking about you. That pulls for publicity. You're going to start getting newspapers, blogs, media coverage. It starts a really nice virtuous circle if you're bringing something positive to the world versus just another, looking to cash a big paycheck.
Yeah, no, and I'm kind of in that realm right now with the new business that I'm bringing into play, but that's for another day. Morning, Sally. Thanks for joining in. I can understand the value here and the importance of even a logo as part of your branding. I mean, we do see Coca-Cola. I saw the news this morning. The guy was working on his house.
Yeah.
And he pulled the drywall down to open up a wall, and inside were McDonald's wrappers from 1959. There were actually French fries there that had been left in the wall, but the wrapper showed the old Speedy.
Oh yeah,
which was the McDonald's guy from the
little hamburger
50s and stuff. But it was a recognizable brand, right? Even then, right? And 60 some years later, 60, 70 years later.
Yeah.
So I get the value of that. I'm trying to read Sally here.
Yeah, she just says truth. Operating with integrity is everything, even in an exit situation.
Yeah, so I'm reminded of the old paperclip story that we hear about in business. It's like if you're the founder of the business, Tom, and you walk through your office and you see a paperclip on the floor. It's do you pick it up or do you walk by? And the kind of people they say you want working for you, the people who are going to pick that up, they want the place, the area to look good. They want everything's represented towards positivity. And you can go, some consultants I know will go and talk to the employees and say, do you know what what the mission statement is? It's a true test if somebody's buying into what you're trying to put out there. And it's going to be very important with me and my new business. I want everybody to understand what the mission statement is, why we're here.
But Tom, a lot of times people think that marketing is branding, right?
Oh yeah.
But not all marketing is branding. Or is it all branding is marketing? Is it the square rectangle thing?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. I mean, marketing fundamentally is I view marketing more as a pragmatic, tactical approach. Marketing is Porter's 5 forces. It's the 5 Ps. It's really the quantitative scientific approach that you'd get if you went to a Harvard Business or a Stanford and really learn the fundamentals. I think branding takes it takes that, but it also takes a little bit of an artistic lens, which isn't to say it's not based in reality, because it is. I mean, if there's a reason for it, I did a rebrand about 15 years ago for a technology hardware provider in upstate New York, in Syracuse. And one of the colors we recommended for their new colorway, this selection of colors that we wanted them to choose, was purple. So male executive board, and they sort of looked at us askance, but we showed them that, hey, we did the study. If you go to your next trade show, everyone else in your space is red, they're blue, they're orange. If you come to purple, you're going to stand out. If you advertise in your next trade publication and you bring this color to the table, you're going to stand out. You're going to become notable. And that's what a good graphic designer or a good designer will do for you. They'll show you the why. They'll root, the font, the color, the photography you choose into who you are, and they'll help you establish that consistency and coherency. If I'm working on a branding project and it ever comes down to the conversation of, I don't like X could be the font, the color, the photos, and I can't show a clear line. It's like I'm doing a math equation. If I can't show my work and say, hey, we recommended this because of this. You told us your business objective was this. You wanted to stand out. We chose these colors. There's a lot of, as you get deep into graphic design, you can say, certain fonts connote certain feelings. There's a whole school of color theory. What colors should you choose for your logo? So it goes really deep. And it's what you get in working with someone who's been in the industry a while versus, there are Fiverr and some, one-off logo design companies out there that you can go to.
Right.
You won't get that deeper consideration because they won't take the time to understand you. If I'm working with a client, it comes down to, let's unpack who you are, who you're trying to reach, because your ultimate brand that will emerge from that is going to be part and parcel. It's going to be effectively, a visual distillation of everything that you said you are. And it's just a reminder. So when people see that in the marketplace, it cues into the larger conversation and it becomes a jumping off point for what you're all about.
Well, and you can see my logo, Innovative Strategies, that took about 3 months to put together with a professional.
Yeah.
And it was no easy task. And it did come down to colors and fonts and having conversations. What colors and things. It's like in my world, it's green, because green is money, represents money. And I'm like, but I like blue, and blue is calming.
Yeah.
You put calming with money, it's a good combination. So that's important. But if you
wouldn't want to choose red anywhere in the financial industry. You don't want to use red. You don't want to use orange.
Not at all. No orange, no red, no yellow, no caution, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if you're going to say purple, I'm going to say you need a good salesman to sell me that one. But marketing to me actually is more an arm of sales. So marketing needs to be saying pretty much the same thing the sales team is saying when they go out there. And that is, and here's we talked about this morning, Ken. Here's the difference between a good salesman and a not so good salesman. A good salesman sells value. A not so good salesman sells a product or a service. Get away from that if that's what you're doing, because then you get stuck in the two different types of worlds. I'm a financial advisor. Oh, well, we know what that is. We know what you do. Well, no, you don't, but you think you do. Yeah. You're a mortgage broker, Ken. People think automatically they know what you do. No, there's all different kinds, and there's all different talents involved in that. So you've got to sell value and not specific product. The other trap you can fall into if you're just selling by price, good luck. I mean, selling by price means you rent the business. You don't own it.
Right. Well, and what when we talk about branding, we've got Tom's epigraph up there. He's the founder of Epigraph, innovation distilled from timeless human truths. There it is. That. Here it is, right? And you have to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Tom, because you're the pro on this. When you see a brand, when you're branding, that brand has to give you a feeling, right? Not a motivation to go buy something, right?
Well, you're dealing with emotions, right?
You are. It's fundamentally there's a few different schools of thought on this that if you enter, so if you think of the way the brain is built, there's the limbic system, which is the attention getting. This is the part when we were, back on the savannah. This is the part that would be surveying to see if there was a lion behind that bush. So that's an effective way to trigger attention. If you fire that up, and then ideally you go to the higher regions where, that's where logic comes in. But catching attention is huge. Yeah, you saw my logo there. The typeface there is Futura, which is a really great classic font. You see it used in a lot of different logos. The FedEx logo uses it. It dates back to, the early 19th century, a German type foundry. I geek out over type, so we can talk about that. You probably don't care, but for our intents and purposes, it's timeless. So you look at those, it's a serif, which means it doesn't have the fancy squiggles that you'd get with, reading a newspaper or a book. And it has a feel to it. You get that out of it. And whether you cognitively understand that or not, it leaves you with an impression. And, if it's a well-built brand, that's a strategically crafted impression that leaves you feeling a certain way. It primes your mind to say, okay, if I'm going to engage with epigraph, if I'm going to engage with innovative strategies, this is the type of space into which I am stepping. If you've ever walked into an Apple store, it primes you in a very certain way. The lines are clean. It's beautiful wood, clean lines, no clutter. It just prepares your mind for a certain type of experience. When you pick up an iPhone, it has a certain hand feel. It just connotes quality, luxury. This is what a good brand does. It just, works seamlessly together to deliver that experience, and it all just aligns perfectly.
Yeah. Well, Sally asks, and Sally, thanks for tuning in. Talking about catching attention, our world today is in such a hurry. How much time would you say we have to catch somebody's attention in a brand, quote unquote, piece, if you will?
Great question. Yeah, there's tons of studies out there that show we're presented with more images, more video than ever before. I don't know what the latest, I think I've heard our attention span continues to shorten, but rest assured it's just a few seconds. So if you are looking to build a business, this is where it becomes more important than ever. We used to be able to sit through an elevator pitch. You had your 30 seconds explaining. What is the shorter version of an elevator pitch? I don't even know what we would call it. Just the one-liner, the slug. Yeah. What's your TikTok pitch?
Yeah, right?
What's the 5 seconds? Tell me it in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you bring it up. So a lot of folks might think I have this great idea, and then this is, I don't know how I came to me, and I don't know why it's great, but this is what I think is good. You're the kind of person that can dig deep down into why this is a great idea, or why this might be a base for a great idea. Being a graduate of Gonzaga, Mr. Cum Laude, you've got a brilliant mind, Tom, and I've heard you express it in the past. But this is how you can dig deeper into the whys of why do you do this? Why that font? Why this color? Why this logo?
Yeah.
Why do you put this together, and how this all plays out over time?
Yeah, Bill, when you're back in your financial advising days, you might sit down with a client and they say, okay, I want to have 1 million, 2 million, 3 million at 60, or when it comes time. And then you say, okay, why? That's where a good financial planner gets to. What do you want to do with that? It's not the number in the bank account, in the Charles Schwab account or whatever. It's, what do you want to do with that? Why? Why do you need to have that money? Is it because you want to travel? Is it because you want to be able to snowbird in Arizona or Florida in the winter? Why? And why do you want to go to Arizona? Oh, the weather's nice. Okay. Are there cheaper, would you ever consider retiring in Costa Rica? Great weather there. Your dollar will go further. So productive things happen when you continue to dig deeper and deeper with the why. Why do you think the marketplace
Most
needs
people,
that?
especially when you're talking financial, don't know why.
Yeah.
They really don't. Money is more of a scorecard than it is anything else. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of that, but that's the reality of where we're at, where we've been for a long time.
Yeah. And if you start to unpack that, I mean, what we've learned from, what do they call it? The hedonic treadmill, where that number continues, when you make, when you have 2 million in the bank, you're going to want 3, you're going to want 4, happiness is always over the next ridge, which is so destructive.
It can be. I mean, next thing you know, you're Elon Musk and wanting to buy Twitter. Why? Because I want more. Yeah, it's hard to find that happy medium where, okay, I'm good. I can ride off into that sunset. I can relax. I can enjoy life. Most folks don't. I remember going to visit my father in Florida, and I've said this before, we'd go play golf, and then all the buddies would go race home so they could get on the internet and learn where the market was for the day to see how their money was. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
That's peace of mind in retirement? That's not my idea of peace of mind.
Yeah.
And why are you in that? And we have a lot of folks kind of feeling a little bit anxious these days with the way the market has been playing out, for good reason. Be an interesting ride going forward.
Yeah. Sally asks, creating a brand starts with the logo. Tom, what would you say are the other 2 strong components that go along with the logo in really establishing your brand?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I started out as a copywriter. I thought I was actually going to be in journalism and public relations. And coming from a writing background, I love just tapping into your tagline. What is that short distillation that says who you are and what you're all about? Because that can be really powerful. If you're in a really disruptive space, you can use shorthand where you'd say, you look to other innovators. You can use shorthand to say, we're the Uber of, take your pick, align yourself with other innovators, because that becomes really nice shorthand for what you're all about. And I continue to bring it back to values. What are those, tapping into, what are those, we call them North Stars. What are those things that you're going to direct toward? Because those become a really effective filter to say, we work with people who are like this. These are the type of organizations with whom we're good fellow travelers. I clearly position who I am and what I'm all about, digging into personal brand. We have our personal brand on my LinkedIn profile. If you spend some time with it, you're going to see what I'm all about, because you see the charities I volunteer at. You're going to see that I'm a mentor in certain spaces, because how much more productive is it, if someone is sussing out whether, we would, be good in a business partnership, client relationship. How much better to know it now than to know it 6 months down the road when we realize, well, we're not values aligned, or, the way we look at the world is just a little bit out of whack. I like being with my clients. I like being in for the journey. I think that's why I like working with startups, because it is all about, it can take a long, long time to walk that path. But I want to be friendly with them when we're done. I want to celebrate the journey, because that's so much more fulfilling than the one-off transactional, I do the thing for you, I take my money and go away. It's not really the way I want to live my life.
Sides, I mean, there's the journey, and then it turns into just management.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the building of the business, and then you have the management of the business, and people are typically geared for one side or the other.
Yeah.
Not too often do you find somebody who loves building things equally as happy just managing it and no longer building. But let's throw in there the fact that you're an Eagle Scout as well.
Wow, congrats!
So if we're going to study that, I mean, that's awesome. I don't know. Do we say thank you for your service? Because that's outstanding. But you thank his mother, because my son's Eagle Scout too. Is he? Yeah. So we don't run into too many Eagle Scouts in our lifetime.
No, we don't.
We
awesome.
don't.
I was getting really close and kind of debating. And you know what my parents did? It was very smart. They said, you don't get to get your driver's license until you get your Eagle Scout badge. So there was that last little bit of motivation that pushed me over the hump.
They got you the last generation, because nowadays kids don't care if they get their license.
This is true. Yeah, I'm a big fan of ethical leadership and sort of unpacking that. Gonzaga, you mentioned earlier, they have a really exceptional program, a Masters of Organizational Leadership program, where they're unpacking and doing some really great PhD work in what does leadership in this day and age look like? What is ethical leadership, servant-led leadership? There's been a lot of research about, what does it take to be an effective leader? What kind of leaders does our world need in this cultural moment? Fascinating stuff.
I agree. And Ted, thanks for joining in too. I thought you said you were stepping away. Watch
Oh,
him
he
later.
did, didn't he?
But he's still here. He
We
lied.
got him, sucker.
He lied. But I agree with that. Integrity is so important. Leadership skills are so important. Negotiating skills, decision-making skills. These are all things that are not being taught. You either have to develop those skills on your own, or you have to let Kent talk.
That's right. Of course, you're listening to 21.6 The Net. This is Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. Today, is your brand working for you? With Tom Briggs, the founder of Epigraph. Epigraph, innovation distilled from timeless human truths. If you go out to his website, and it's right there. I'll post it as well, but it is helloepigraph.com. You can connect with him. The best way to do that, Tom, of course, is hooking up through LinkedIn, right?
Yep. If you search for me, you'll find me there. And reach out, say hi. I always love making connections with other like-minded individuals around the world. I know we're live on the internet, so it's so intriguing to see. Innovation can come from anywhere. You look at a lot of these places that are transforming. You look at those spaces that are going to emerge in Southeast Asia, East Africa, just these hubs of innovation. I was chatting with this. I mentor young designers, and I chatted with this guy coming out of Nigeria. He was a digital web marketer coming out of Nigeria, and I said to him, "You are working counter to the brand, because unfortunately for him, a lot of the spammers and come out of Nigeria. So to be in that space, I said, hats off to you. You have an uphill road, but good work. Keep it up." Because he was a great, he's just coming in, starting his time in the industry, full of life and vision, and I just said, do it.
Perseverance.
Good work. Keep it up.
Yeah. Any startup is fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And whether they're doing something that's never been done before, or they're going into a world that's highly competitive.
Sure.
It's always an uphill climb. It's always more difficult and challenging than you can imagine, or that you even think it will be. We have, depending upon what you look at, and on Google, between 2 and 5 million startups in the last year and a half. A lot of those folks do not know what they're getting into. That's kind of part of what this show's about, is trying to help those folks understand.
Some of us who've been in business for a while are still trying to figure out what we got
right.
to do.
Absolutely. And there's many of us who've been around a long time and still have much to learn. But we have that insatiable desire to learn here.
So I got a quick question. Because every business ebbs and flows, and your brand takes a hit. Okay, so it becomes, they see it and they're like, oh, there's those trucks out there. That's when you see that, you've been wronged by them, or it was bad business or whatever. How do you recover? Do you change your logo? Do you change, once you've hit that dip, Tom, how do you recover from, or quote unquote, save the brand or rebrand?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I always counsel clients to keep a rebrand is like the nuclear option. If you really do want to, because fundamentally you look back, Philip Morris rebranded to Altria, because they really had to. There were some things that they had to step away from. So a rebrand is a signaling of, hey, we're turning away from what we used to be. Whereas, there's brand rehabilitation, and this is where, some of my friends in publicity and PR and image management come into play, where there's something to be said about, if you make a mistake, owning up to it, saying, yes, we stepped in it. Sorry, we were wrong. And just, if you're rebranding at the drop of a hat, the brand loses some of its equity. It loses some of its value. There is a time and place for it, but I would keep it as a last resort and really lean into, if your brand is truly rooted in the values that you stand for and you're in integrity with it, why would you want to walk away with that?
Well, there's something there.
I'm sorry?
There's something there. So whether you like it or not, you're building a brand from the get-go. But can a brand pigeonhole you into only being able to be a certain part of a market?
Interesting.
That's a really good question, and this is where we'll get into. Should we wade into some fraught territory?
No hardball questions. Sorry about that.
No, it's good. I mean, so because of the cultural moment we're in right now, we fundamentally, humans have always been tribal. It's in our nature. And now we're seeing, for various reasons, we're becoming ever more, maybe it's a return to tribalism. We like that and those with whom we're like. And in a time of sort of, upset, brands are acting as arbiters of certain values. For various camps, everything from, Nike stood with Kaepernick, but Black Rifle Coffee, looking at strong national identity, standing with the troops. You can see this on both sides of the spectrum. So there is some power, and I believe, we can go back and forth on whether it's a good thing, bad thing, but some brands are casting sort of an aspirational, here is the type of world that we think humans should live in. And there are various reasons for that, but it's an interesting trend, to be sure. There's more room than ever for brands to articulate a vision of, hey, this is the type of world that we should create for humanity.
You taught me then here. So branding isn't about like branding a particular product or service. It's more like branding a mindset.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where you sort of look at and you open up your vision of what brand can be. It's not just the product. It's not just a logo. It is the whole.
It changed my whole way of thinking right now.
Yeah. It's everything that falls under. I mean, if it is how a thing, service, product, person is perceived, you can file it under brand.
Well, you take a look at the orange and black Harley Davidson. Back when I was growing up, that meant you were in a motorcycle gang. Today it means you're a middle-aged doctor. It's a cleaner, crisper look, right? So they quote unquote took it from
those are the yuppies.
Angels
those are the yuppies that grew up,
right?
Right.
I think of here in Chicago, the blue and red, the blue cap with the red C on it. The Cubs have a brand, right? And it's not the same brand as, let's say, in the sports world, a Los Angeles Lakers, that have more championships, so the brand for the Cubs is, hey, we're going to have a good time and we're lovable, right? But it doesn't say we walk around with championship rings.
No, we have to be lovable because we don't walk around with championship rings every 108 years, but still.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, you touched upon a great point. A brand exists in a cultural moment. It exists at a time and space, point in time where there are cultural opinions. There are certain things are happening in the world. Harley is a great example. They've evolved. I was working. I talked to another. I didn't have my hand in it, but there was an agency that was rebranding Playboy. What is Playboy in this modern age? It's very different than, because the things that they had 50 years ago are, there are very different cultural mores right now. So it's a really interesting space where you look at how do brands evolve over time? How does a conversation around brands evolve? Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. Sally asks, if someone was getting ready to work with you, what are the things they should prepare for you for that initial meeting? Looks like you're getting a new customer.
Yeah, great question. I think values are really that key thing. So tapping into that, what will be true for you, 5, 10, 20 years down the road? What are those unchanging core values? And that takes a little introspection. If you're a solo provider, maybe you spend some time thinking, journaling about it and unpacking it. Because it's really, if you are looking to build a brand, how much easier is it if you build it out of integrity rather than, man, this thing has to be consistent. I'm going to have to put on a really good facade across every single thing in order to be successful. How much more fulfilling, frankly, how much easier is it if it just speaks to who you are? So, with Epigraph, fundamentally, I call us a think tank that makes good. I am a geek who likes to dig back into history and say, okay, what lessons can we extract from what happened before? How can, maybe the music has changed, but the dance steps are kind of the same. I use the example of cryptocurrency. It's new, it's fancy, but fundamentally, the thing underlying crypto is what the Medici family created in 1619 with, the general ledger and some of the fundamental principles of modern banking that they laid in place. So I would counsel someone toward that. Spend the time thinking about, what are kind of the unchanging lessons of humanity, through whatever lens you want to look like. What are the rules of the road? We humans have a good stretch of time from behind us. What are those things that you're going to tap into? Those classic human elements that you're going to engage with in the marketplace, and then draw your values out of that, because it just makes it all a lot more sustainable and more fun.
And it makes sense. And one of the things, and for Sally, one of the things, like I tell my kids when they're interviewing for jobs and things, I said, the most important thing is just to be yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fit in with the culture, it's good to know right away, right now, because you don't want to go in there thinking, oh, I have to act a certain way or be a certain way in order to get this position and get this job. And then you're 3 months in and you hate it.
Yeah.
You're 6 months in, you can't stand it. You're not doing yourself any good. You're not doing the business any good.
Yeah.
So I think when you want to interview people, show them who you are, and let them show you who they are. And if there's a fit there, because you hire quality people, you can train people to do a job, but you can't train people to be good people. That's hard.
Yeah.
But that's my take on that kind of thing. But that's part of branding too.
Yeah. And if you're looking to unpack your values and you're kind of unsure about what you value, look at your calendar. Time is your most limited resource. So over the past month, what have you put time into? And it can be unflattering. Maybe you put a lot of time into watching Netflix. But what is that uncovering? Are you what's the why behind that? Are you hungering for adventure? What are other places you could find adventure? Are you hungering for drama? Maybe you're hungering for human connection. What are more healthier ways you can uncover that? Do you spend a lot of time reading books? Wisdom, might be a key value for you. Are you spending enough time with your family? Family might be one of those values. If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to need to balance that, because those will be in tension. Are you giving enough time to those people in your life, whether it's family, friends, spouse, kids?
Absolutely agree with you in balancing family, work life, and all that, because one can easily overtake the other, and you can get burnt out fairly quickly. And it typically doesn't end well. I know Sally had another question. What was the average length?
Yep. She says, so what's the average length of your relationship life cycle with your clients? Sorry, last question, maybe. I'm a marketing geek, but he stated marketing is not branding. So very interested in this topic.
Great question. I would say as long as necessary. I think if you're really looking to substantially shift your brand, plan on investing, a year is a good marker, and there are incremental steps, but you're building it brick by brick. So being willing to throw in with one provider who will walk with you that entire journey is good, and it takes time to build that momentum. And if you are, a global Fortune 50 company, you're the big battleship that if you want to change course, it's going to take time and energy. It's much different if you're an early stage startup just breaking onto the stage and you don't have, a lot of legacy behind you. You sort of get the ability to, you're a little more agile and you can set the tone for what you want your brand and greater marketing vision to be. But a year is a good time, but it becomes, like I said at the top of the show, the marker is, are you willing to invest in brand and identify it as a viable line item on your P&L alongside your sales efforts, marketing efforts, whatever label you want to put on it. Sales and marketing are more pragmatic. Marketing oftentimes, I like to think of marketing is providing the air cover. And brand is providing the air cover for the sales staffs that are out there working in the day-to-day. I've equipped a lot of sales teams with materials, animations, videos. Ideally you should be softening, the target for your salespeople to come in and do, the one-off, one-to-one relational selling that they do so well.
So no instant gratification here.
It's not, unfortunately, no. I mean, you're changing perceptions, so it can take time.
I don't care how small or big you are. When you're doing that, there's no easy quick fix.
Which is why I should tap into who you are, because if you're in for the journey, don't you want to be operating out of that versus having to hold that muscle tension and force it?
Well, it's much easier if you tap into who you are. Yeah, no question.
Yeah. I love branding, and there's so much that happens, especially in a small business life cycle, that is branding, not selling, not marketing, right? Back in the day, marketers would throw up a billboard, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's really just branding, because you're
and promotions is the label that we'd sometimes put on it too. Yeah. And when you are a small business, it comes down to, what's the one domino that if you tip that, it's going to make a lot of other dominoes fall. So if we do want to get into the practical, digital marketing, if you're looking for results, don't go and buy the billboard. The targetability of digital marketing and advertising on a one-to-one, where you can, once you've clearly identified, okay, we're looking to reach people who are this way, believe this way, and you get really specific to that, you can create a perfect message and get it in front of those people. And then brand is just the consistency of that, where wherever they encounter you in their ramblings online, when they see that brand, they're going to say, oh yeah, that company stands for X or Y.
And that starts from the get-go. So you may be a startup that you don't have a product or a service yet to sell. You're still in concept stage. But branding's already going on.
Yeah. Start from those values and really start looking down the road. And before you know it, you're building that foundation. And if you build it sustainably, you're not going to have to tear the house down 5 years down the road and redo the foundation because it has cracks. You want to build that really strong foundation, and tapping into values will do that for you.
Yeah, we talk a lot about building that foundation around here.
Sally, as Sally says, I might have missed this earlier, but do you take established brands and help to make them stronger? If so, do you have a quick story you could share about a rebranding project you loved working on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I worked with a really interesting brand earlier this year. They'd been in market for about 50 years. It was a health shake that had a founder who had passed away, a few years back. And the cultural moment now is such that, they were still very relevant. And it was really great because they had this beautiful backstory of, a groundbreaking founder who was, really, an iconoclast in his day, and all the more now. And there was some other things in play. This founder had written a few books. There was a documentary that had recently hit the market, showcasing him. So it was a really nice brand where you see the timelessness. So being able to tap into those classic roots and what came before can be really powerful for a brand. Recognizing where you've come from, and rebranding is never shouldn't be, we're going to burn the boats and just ignore the past. A good rebrand taps into who you are and then looks out in the future and says, this is who we've always been. And oh, by the way, in this modern time, we're not blowing to the winds of change. We're always going to be who we are, but here's a slightly different lens to view us through.
Well, I like tapping back to the beginnings. What got you started? What was the passion that got you going in the first place?
Yeah.
And I would think maybe, and you correct me, if rebranding is a little bit about just modernizing that.
It can give you a lot of really good energy. It's always good to remember, like in your marriage, it's always good to think back to those early days when you're newlyweds, same with a company, the honeymoon phase. If you're a co-founder, looking back to the early days of what got you to this point, and how, well, some of those key lessons, and then looking at your mistakes too. Where did we fall down and scrape our knees? But, what's good? What's gotten us to this point that we should double down on?
Yeah.
I like thinking more about the type of champagne I'm going to get for that first $1 billion in sales.
Yeah, exactly.
You're already thinking of that brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the core.
Well, and here's what I love, and what I've heard throughout this whole episode is it's awesome, but your brand is in everything that you do. Sales, not necessarily. Marketing, not necessarily, but it's the values that you live and thrive with. And that is, Tom, a hard thing for, especially, and I like to focus on small mom and pop businesses, maybe 1 or 2 employees that, I was a plumber. I was a good plumber. I got my own truck, and now I do my own thing.
Yeah.
And that branding piece, we don't recognize that it's in everything that we do. Sally,
in and out of work.
Yeah. Sally gave an example here. She was, at one of the big box stores, and somebody said, "Hey, aren't you the people who sell insurance?" And she's like, she wasn't wearing any of her logos or anything like that.
Right.
So she just kind of ignored until the lady touched her shoulder and said, "Hey," and she picked up a new client right there
at the grocery store.
Yeah.
So but that's a testament to Sally and Tim over there at the Santos agency, and how amazing people they are.
Yeah. So as I've gotten, the magnet on my door, because now I'm a roofer now. I've gone out on my own, and I'm how do I put my brand out there first in my mind to go, you know what, this guy just cut me off. I shouldn't pull my Glock 9 and shoot him.
Yeah. I think for me, it always helps to harken back to, if I like Donald Miller and his take on this. He has a story brand out of Nashville where he has a new take on sort of the old concept of selling the sizzle, not the steak. So say you're a roofer, and you're not just selling the latest shingles that provide, 40 years of protection. You're providing peace of mind. You're selling peace of mind because that regardless of, what winds come or what rains come, that family is going to have a nice, dry house. They're not going to experience water damage. So looking at the bigger why underlying, if you're selling insurance, you're selling, peace of mind and the comfort that comes from, if anything happens to me, the family will be taken care of. So sort of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and not just saying I'm slinging whatever. Like, no, what's the bigger dent? What's the bigger gift I want to give to my fellow humans?
And Kent, we were talking about that this morning. You were discussing how that was how you were representing yourself recently at an event, and saying, I provide peace of mind. And a lot of us do. I do in the financial advising world, right? When I talk to people about retirement planning, it's bringing peace of mind. But it's amazing how many people really don't necessarily want peace of mind.
Yeah, I say I'm a professional sleep expert. I help people sleep peacefully, right? Knowing they make the right financial decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And, some people will be up for that journey, and others will say, just fix the damn roof, which is fine.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
At the end of the day, yes, you're fixing the roof. And there'll be some people who want to have that.
You know, just fix the dang thing. It's leaking,
Yeah.
and you know it's going to cost me more money if we don't fix it.
Yeah, don't use all the fancy words, and that's fine. You know, there are service providers for that where, and you know, you can if you know, it doesn't have to be all high-minded, aspirational puppies and kitties and rainbows. You know, you may just be, but if you're going to fix a roof, be the best darn roof fixer and back it with the best warranty in the biz, and you know, offer that superior level of value and service. You know, anything worth doing,
I went to a Lake County Fairgrounds this past weekend. Had the home show going on.
That's
I had no idea there were that many people selling windows, siding, roofing, and all that stuff. And you know, and then I had one guy, and it was kind of fed up because they were pretty aggressive as you walk through. And I finally got fed up because one guy came out to me, and he was like the 15th solar power person there, and he's like, "So, do you have ComEd service?" And I'm like, "Hey, dumbass, everybody has ComEd service around here, okay? That's what, do you know where we live? I mean, seriously, that's how you're coming at me?"
Right.
You know, forget the branding. I don't even know what the name of his company was or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just, I was distraught by that time of being inundated by aggressive people pushing, "Oh, you're looking to do this, you're looking to do this, you're looking to do that." It's like, well, that's kind of why I'm here, you know, getting ideas. But there's the importance, right? You talk to different people with different companies, and you get to learn which ones you want to work with.
That's
right. You bring up a really great point. If you are offering a commodity, something that is interchangeable, branding is all the more important.
Yep. Yeah.
I've done identities for coffee companies, and you know, roasting coffee, you know, fundamentally, what you don't get much more of a commodity than coffee. So what's the story you're putting on top of that? You know, are you know, supporting the farmers in Guatemala? You know, there's a coffee roaster here in town that they'll give you the GPS coordinates so you can go to the exact location that bag of coffee came from in South America. So there's a bigger story there versus just, hey, these are beans.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so again, you know, this is a subject that kind of is subliminal in most business owners' minds. They don't, I mean, even for me, I'll admit, this is not something that's has been on my mind until I listened to you last week and I said, whoa. This is much, much more important than I think it gets credit for.
Yeah. A lot to unpack. That's why it's fun.
Yeah, there is.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, for what Tom does, and I want our listeners to understand that. We've got, you know, Tom Briggs, the founder of Epigraph, and it's not easy. You think it is. You think it's
not at all.
You think you get in touch with Tom from Tom's Productions, and you get your name on your shirt and a hat. That it's a piece of it, but that ain't it. You know, this is, as I found out today, man, this goes deep. This goes into that state of mind. It goes into logic. More than one sense logic. That when I see that, and you know, I've got Tom's website up there. Just go to helloepigraph.com. But I love this because I go, all right, it's just clean. It's crisp. I go, this guy knows what he's doing. There's not 23 pages on this.
No, here's something else to love.
Right?
Here's something else to love about Tom. He works with the big boys.
Yeah.
But he mentors the little guy.
Yeah, that's huge.
You know, in a testament to the type of person you are, Tom. You know, I've always said the same thing when people say, "Well, how much money do I have to have in order to talk to you?" And I go, "You got $1?" You know, I don't have a minimum balance to work with people because we're committed to using our gift and our services and our products that we have to helping others.
Yeah. So as we talk about financial literacy and branding, what aspect on the bottom line does a good brand have percentage wise?
Oh, percentage wise, there's so many different factors of whether that's a huge multi-billion-dollar, multi-country brand. I mean, I will bookend by saying if you build it well and build it sustainably and invest in it, it will pay good returns to your bottom line.
Awesome.
It's just one of those things. There's a reason that Coca-Cola, like I said at the top of the show, has that a line item. Like there is literal dollar value associated with that color, those squiggles, and that's just a product of years and years and years of investment. And it's not easy and it's not quick, but fundamentally it's worthwhile because it makes you differentiated in a highly competitive marketplace.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for an extremely interesting conversation, an interesting hour. I know Kent and I take tons of notes on this stuff. You and I are definitely going to be talking in the very near future about my new deal that I have
Your
going
adventure.
on with my new adventure and new business, because we're at that stage where this is very important. And I love the fact is build that foundation so that we don't get the cracks going forward and have to come back. So thank you so much for your time, your energy, your knowledge, your experience. Appreciate it.
That's it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, this has been Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. We can't thank Tom Briggs from Epigraph, the founder of Epigraph, taking some time out of his busy schedule this morning to get caught in the net. Come back at 12:30 for questions you never thought you could ask in church. Until then, everybody, be good. Be good to each other.
Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.